Happy Memorial Day weekend Saturday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Hope you guys had a great day today. Beautiful day in Columbus, Ohio. Hope it was beautiful wherever you guys are at around the country and around the world as we lay and give a little bit of remembrance to our heroes from Memorial Day. Always a big weekend. I think the most important holiday in America, because without it and what some of our heroic troops have done, there wouldn't be any other holidays. So again, make sure that you guys thank our men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice, our veterans, our folks who are deployed. Again, everyone that's, again, we are real big on, patriotism, which is kind of a lost art nowadays, but it's starting to make a little bit of a comeback over the last few months. But again, I just appreciate all you guys being a part of this show. Again, we rock the American flag on all of our gear. I appreciate all you guys that bought the gear. But again, make sure you guys thank the people that make this country what it is. And again, this is going to be a huge show because you guys make it one. As always, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys so much for what you guys do, showing up each and every day. I know it's a Saturday night. I know a lot of people are out enjoying themselves, having maybe a little dinner, heading out for the night shopping, whatever, getting ready for the weekend and for the next couple days. But again, I appreciate you guys. We got some great intel on Julian Sayin and his meteoric rise. So we're going to go through that. This is also going to be a Scoop Ultra episode. If you are a Scoop Ultra member, a subscriber to the monthly Pay It Forward campaign that we have on Scoop Ultra, we have the little designation next to your name. Please put 3 asterisks or 3 stars next to a question. I will find it and I will answer it. Treat it just like a super chat. So this is a Scoop Ultra. This is a Scoop Ultra joint. So I appreciate you guys that are Scoop Ultra members. So start firing with those questions and we will watch some tape, tell some stories, have a good time tonight as we lead into a great night of sports with Oklahoma City playing Minnesota and also the NHL game, Florida Panthers, Carolina starting at 8. So we'll run right into that. But I appreciate you guys as always. So got to get right into it. I'm flying solo tonight, but I will still have Nevada's logo up on the screen. But yeah, I got some great intel, and we've been kind of, digging a little bit, seeing what's been going on since the team's been back. Summer workouts are especially brutal at Ohio State. I was in them every year, and it's not a fun time, but it's a good time because coaches really do want to test you, and they want to make sure that you're strapped up and ready to go as you get ready to go into the season, because the season is not for the faint of heart, and the only way you can get ready for it is you got to train hard. But the rise of Julian Sayin, and I got this from Helping Technician. He talks to people in the Woody and outside the Woody that know Julian, and not just know Julian, but know a lot of the mega hitters on the team and the offense and those types of folks. And, Julian Sayin's rise has been meteoric since this season has ended, since Will Howard moved on. Again, there's always there's this moment in time, and they've talked about it, and I lived it, where every year, there's this big auditorium at the Woody Hayes, and it's got 150 or 60 chairs in it, because the players, the coaches, everybody has a seat usually. And every year, in like January, whatever, this year was the latest one ever because, they went to mid-January at the championship, but there's that first team meeting without last year's seniors where, they're off training for the NFL draft and everybody slides down 2 or 3 rows and they reorganize the seating chart and they want the captains up front and center. And, it's just one of those deals. And, it's been an adjustment post Will Howard, Jack Sawyer, JT, these leaders that we had, were maybe the best leadership group in the history of Ohio State with Emeka Egbuka, Trey Henderson, a really deep roster. When you look at Donovan Jackson not being a captain is almost criminal. I can see what Ryan was doing just because he wanted to shorten it down to 4 captains. But, Donnie Jackson's a captain on 99% of the teams in the history of Ohio State. And this was this year where you had Trey and Emeka who had played a little bit longer and were just as deserving, if not a little bit more deserving. And Ryan went with it. And again, I give Ryan Day a lot of credit for that. But, when you start to develop your new team and there's a quarterback derby, there has to be kind of a changing of the guard of the leadership, because regardless of age, status, returning starts, the quarterback has to be the guy. He has to be the guy, even if it's tough, even if it's, kind of a two-headed, battle and, he might not be sure. But, Julian Sayin is really, according to Helping Technician, has really kind of taken the reins over the last month or so. Obviously, he helped organize, in conjunction with Lincoln, but their workout was in Southern California, which is where Julian's from, and a lot of those guys, over break, they were able to get out there, and JJ went out there, and again, here's the thing this is why I know it's huge as JJ went, and JJ, is the best player in college football. I think if he was in the NFL, he'd be one of the 10 best receivers in the NFL right now. And people can say I'm crazy, but nobody wants to guard that guy. But JJ made it a point to be out there, and he's a very quiet person, dominating guy on the field, dominating guy, his presence, whatever you want to say. But he's not a guy that, is a guy that's out hanging out, chilling all over the place, because for one, he can't, just because of who he is. He can't just go out and kick it downtown because it's a paparazzi fest and everybody wants to take a photo of him. So he kind of lays low, but he made it a point to be out there, which I thought was really important. And obviously Brandon Inniss and Carnell Tate, the South Florida Express kids are kind of the leaders of the offense at this point. There's some growing leadership in the offensive line with Carson Hinsman and some of these guys, but the SFE guys are, and Inniss is a very demonstrative, loud, angry leader. He's the kind of guy that is ready for war at like any moment. And again, I love Brandon Inniss. Brandon Inniss is one of the greatest kids I've ever met. He's a kid I'd love to have had as a teammate. Honestly reminds me of Santonio. Santonio was a guy that was vocal and wasn't scared to call people out, but he was, he's what you call a dog. He's a flat dog, and he's not scared to, kind of voice his feelings, not in a bad way. Sometimes you think when a receiver talks, it's bad, but Brandon Inniss is, he's kind of a leader who, he's still growing. He still hasn't made his first career start, but he's a guy that's played a lot and people respect him. And he's a guy that, got a guy like JJ looked up to, and a guy like, Carnell kind of got taken into the South Florida Express brotherhood. So he's kind of been the de facto leader for 3 or 4 years. He's, according to Brett Getz, he's the leader of the South Florida Express still. He's the guy that was the tone setter and the guy that would get everybody juiced up. And he was like, if there was a captain of a team that had Brandon Inniss, Carnell Tate, and Jeremiah Smith, like Brandon would be the captain, not JJ, not Carnell, just because of how he held guys accountable, and he was very demonstrative about it, which again I think is great. But yeah, there's been this kind of inflection point where this team knows that they need the quarterback to be excellent for us to go where we want to go. Now, again, we are the preseason favorites to win the national championship, according to the sharpest bookmakers in Las Vegas, which obviously those guys care about money. They're not Buckeye fans. They're not Oregon fans. They're not Georgia fans. They care about being sharp with their odds so that they can make the most money, because, you can't miss on that stuff very often. So, but I think Julian Sands rise has made them sharpen their pencils even more, because they've got great sources as well. We've talked to a lot of them, and they think that Julian, again, you have to remember this kid's pedigree. 5-star quarterback, a kid that, is Southern California. He's played against the best teams. He's gone to the biggest competitions, the Elite 11. He won the Elite 11. He was incredible on the 7-on-7 circuit, where guys like Brandon Inniss and Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith got to go against him and see how good he was. So it's all kind of coming together with the rise of Julian. And again, he's a kid that's obviously he's not physically imposing. People, they kind of make fun of him, but I'm like, Baker Mayfield, and I'm not comparing him to Baker, but in terms of guys that were not 6'5", but still dominated college football, there's been a lot of them recently. And I think that when you look at the development of our team and our passing game, I think that when you look at what, who are the new controllers of the offense, and Ryan's still obviously going to have his hands in it, but, Brian Hartline and Keenan Bailey are kind of running the show now on offense, especially from a throwing game perspective. And, when you've got your slot guys, Max Clare, who I think is the best tight end that we've had, I want to say since Ricky Dudley, but, after we see how he works, and now again, they're both 3rd-year guys, and Ricky was a top 10 pick, but that's the kind of guy that he is. Like when you see Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren, that's what Max is, and you watch his tape. And again, I've watched the Penn State tape a million times, because Penn State was the best team, probably other than us, the best defense that they went against. And you watch him get 9 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown versus Penn State, completely overwhelmed team. he's going to be a guy that is going to have a humongous season with Julian Sayin at quarterback. Because Julian, again, he's going to be a guy they're going to get rid of the ball quick. He's going to work the middle of the field. Linebackers can't cover him. We're going to take shots to JJ. Ennis, work in the middle as well. And then Carnell, down the rails with the deep shots. I think that, Julian's comfort level is growing. Obviously it's tough when you're not the, he was basically the number 3 last year, which is tough because you don't get as many throws as you'd like to JJ and Carnell Tate, who were with the ones last year. It was all Will Howard and then some spot work for Devin Brown. But I think that this summer has been huge. And I think that California trip, it did speak volumes when JJ showed up. It's kind of like, JJ showed up to California. It's kind of like Michael Jordan agreeing to play on the 1992 Dream Team, where it's like, they wanted to put all the best players on the team. And, it's a lot easier if you get Mike to go and play in Barcelona and get, Bird and Magic and, all the other, Malone, Stockton, Barkley. If Jordan jumps in the boat, then it's easy to get him. So when JJ said he'd go to California, and he rented his own house, he didn't stay with everybody. A lot of the guys shared a big house, but JJ had his own house because JJ's got JJ money. So he wanted to stay by himself and chill. And that's great. But JJ vouching was huge. This is something that was planned by the quarterbacks. Obviously, Southern California, very desirable place to be this time of the year. And these guys were able to do some business too. They went out to Excel, which is a big wellness place, and they were able to meet with some marketing companies and do that thing. But they got a lot of really good work in, and it was all directed by Julian Sayin, which again I think is critical as the team goes forward. And again, I'm excited about Julian just because it's like I told Nevada, I like to bet on Secretariat. I'm not a guy that's going to pick on the long shots or the long odds or, hey, this is a 500 to 1 shot. Like, give me the heavy favorite. And that's what Julian is. And I think Julian, he's got the pedigree, he's got the stock. I think that with Keenan Bailey really having a huge say in play calling with Brian Hartline, Brian Hartline and Keenan Bailey, very, very tight, very, very close. Brian obviously wants to run the offense, and again, he's not going to do it at the behest of his friend, but Keenan Bailey's done a lot in the last few years. And I think that his rise in the program and his rise alongside Brian Hartline from position coach to, coordinator, and then Keenan Bailey from intern over 10 years to being the co-offensive coordinator without ever leaving Ohio State says a lot. So I think that, I think Max Clare's going to have the best season that we've seen from a tight end in 20 years. So, again, with Julian and with Max, I think there's going to be a lot of comfort there. And I think there's going to be a lot of great work done. So we have a super chat, and then I will start checking for some Scoop Ultra stuff. And I'm going to toss on some Julian film for you guys so you guys can get a little look at this. I hope you guys were able to watch Pop's podcast last night. It was great. Brett Getz was on with Daniel Sanchez, who is the father of Devin Sanchez, and Devin. They did a great job. And I'll get into the super chats. Bob Myers, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. What do you think? Saying 4,000 yards passing, 2,000 receivers, 2 900-yard rushers, tight end 10 touchdowns. That is gaudy. But if we're including the postseason, I think it's very reachable, especially with Julian and JJ. I could see Carnell and JJ easily both being 1,000-yard guys. I could see, I think James Peoples goes over 1,000 pretty easily, especially if we'll be deep in the playoffs. DJ Donaldson's been really good. I mean, again, a lot of these guys, some of these guys leave a role of being the man, which CJ Donaldson would have been at West Virginia, to kind of be a in a duo, which we're going to see this year with James Peoples. And I think James Peoples is somebody that people aren't talking enough about in terms of his talent, his ability, his toughness. And he's a great kid. Like, he's not razor sharp kid, tough, but just incredible football sense, again, from the people that I talk to. I mean, in terms of understanding the game, because there's some running backs that all you can do is hand them the ball and hope that they fall forward and they can see the hole and vision. But James really understands the game, which is different. You watch some of the stuff that he did in high school, some of the stuff he's done in the first year in the program. He plays like he's a 25-year-old NFL guy in terms of how he can read blocking schemes. Again, I was talking, especially to some people about his ability to really see creases and holes and what the cutbacks and pushing front side. And, a lot of people think that with a running back, it's like you just hand them the ball and they go straight into a hole and hopefully we get some yards. And if it's blocked perfectly, we might get a touchdown. But, there's a lot more of an art form to playing running back. And with James, he gets it. Again, I played with Antonio Pittman very much the same way. Again, that he would find the tough yards, and again, I think one of the most underrated attributes as a running back and something that Carlos Loughlin is very adamant about is toughness. And I think that that's something as you get into, kind of the brass tacks of a running back is how tough are they? And James is a very tough kid and he's a very tough runner. And he doesn't complain about the dirty work. He doesn't care if he doesn't care about his touches. He wants to just do what he has to do to help the team win, which is great. And again, you look at the best running backs in the NFL, like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and those guys, they're touch monsters. They get a ton of touches, score a lot of points, and they're probably the two best players in the NFL last year. But that being said, they're also exceptionally tough guys, durable. But CJ Donaldson's been kind of a revelation because we thought he was a very good player. Obviously, he had to start at West Virginia as the 1A guy, but he's here. And the great thing about Mickey, man, and with this pedigree and with Ryan Day and with Carlos Loughlin, is like you might be a great player at West Virginia. And he was. I watched his tape. Very, very good player. Great get when we added him to the program. But they're all going to make you work harder and get thinner and get faster and get, we want more than what you had at West Virginia. Because frankly, the best part about Ohio State winning the national championship is like, look, you can say what you want about us, or you can say that we don't know what we're doing or whatever, but like we just did what you want to do. Like what CJ Donaldson's dream is to win a national championship and be a first or second round pick. And we just literally put 2 running backs in the second round in 1 year. So, I mean, it's like if Carlos Loughlin tells you to jump off the top of, Ohio Stadium, like you got to go do it because he obviously knows what he's talking about. And he's trying to put you through the ringer to make you be as good as you can possibly be. And the same with Mickey. Like, again, I've lived through the Mickey Marotti stuff because when I was a coach there, it was brutal. But the guys got in tremendous shape. We saved a lot of guys' careers, and a lot of those guys, they took what Mickey did, and Urban Meyer did, and they turned it into long-term NFL successes and millions of dollars, and just like an incredible run. So I think James Peoples is going to be huge with CJ. But I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised by CJ. I think he's one of the sleepers of the team just because, he was under recruited but very good at West Virginia, and now he's here. But you kind of want to see what are the new versions of these guys going to look like? Because like to me, if you're Ethan Onyanwa and you're at Rice, and Rice has a nice strength training program. No, they're the strength coach staff. They're very well thought of, but he was heavy and he showed up heavy, and and Mickey got that weight, got about 30 pounds off of him. And it's amazing when you lose 30 pounds, how much better it is, how much easier it is to play the game for a longer amount of time, to feel better about your pass protection. Again, because for him, his entire livelihood depends upon how well he can pass block. That's it. Like when there's these people, these mock draft guys, and I saw the tweets, second, third round pick in this past year's draft, in the 25 draft that that Jack Sawyer and Donnie Jackson went in. It comes down to pass blocking. Like that's why Donnie Jackson was a first round pick, because he was throwing shutouts every week versus James Pierce of Tennessee and versus Mateo Uiagalelei from Oregon and these really good edge guys that he saw in the playoffs. He was throwing shutouts against all of them. No sacks allowed. And didn't give up a sack after Abdul Carter got him twice in the first game he started. So again, Josh Simmons, same way. Like, why would Andy Reid stake the career of Pat Mahomes on that kid? Because he's a freak of nature athlete. Excellent pass protector. And Josh is one of the smartest kids I've ever talked to in terms of really understanding offensive line play. He is a doctorate level in a lot of the stuff he does. And some of it is just because I've seen him on film and I'd watch it and I'd be like, wow, that's like some NFL 10-year veteran type stuff that he's doing. Not just from his technique, but some of the little nuanced stuff he would do would be really good. And then I asked him about it and he's like, you noticed that? And I was like, yeah, it's really good. I mean, the more I watched him, the more I was like, this kid should be a top 10 pick, even if his patellar tendon exploded versus Oregon. I mean, you can recover from that. And he looks fantastic and he's participating fully with the Chiefs. And, he could end up being the seal of the draft, in my opinion. Him along with Will Howard and a couple of these other guys. So I appreciate you. Let me toss on. Let me see if I got any of the super chats. I hope you guys are having a good night tonight. Don't think, do we got one? Not yet. If you guys have a super, oh, there we go. Beth and Karis found it. Sorry, guys. Make sure I set that. All right. Which wide receiver besides JJ has really stepped up at camp? And I appreciate you, Beth and Karis, for being on here each and every night. Love you guys to death. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. I mean, Brandon Ennis is really looking good right now, man. But it's funny because it's the 4 SFE guys, because then you go to Mylan. Like Mylan Graham is the sleeper's sleeper. He's kind of like the sharp money better sleeper for this season, because you've got a kid who has exceptional ability, who I think was hampered tremendously last year when he wasn't able to enroll early. So, he didn't get here until June, and that's really tough on kids, especially freshmen that could potentially contribute, because Mylan's the kind of guy that probably could have gotten some run, but he didn't, just because, again, when you're trying to learn a new playbook, and again, a lot of you guys have had jobs, you've switched jobs, you've gone to high school, learned a new class, your first day of class, you get the syllabus and you get the book. And when you if you skip spring practice, because there's all these kids that are coming in January, like for instance, Caden Dixon Wyatt, who we interviewed the other day, January enrollee, he's coming from Matter Day. He'll be in for winter workouts, which is huge. I mean, the winter workouts, it's not weightlifting. It's mat drills. It's conditioning. It's a lot of stuff that's really difficult. But it breaks the kids down in a good way, gets them used to the culture. They kind of get some chemistry with their teammates, get to know each other, can kind of put a nice first foot forward. But then they get to spring practice. And in spring practice, the first day of spring ball, you install the base plays on offense. And then the second day you install more plays. And the third day install more plays. So it's like every day you're installing new stuff, but you do it at a quickened pace, but it's not a hyper pace. You can still learn the stuff, and it's never chill. Obviously there's always like a pedal to the metal, get the guys to where they need to go. But that being said, for a kid like Mylan to be there for spring, when they really have a lot of time, really from the time that they enroll in January until they get to the field in April, they can teach these kids the plays for months before they ever actually step on the field. Whereas opposed to June, the coaches aren't allowed to have as much contact. They can still do some stuff. They have like these kind of OTA days, which is an organized team activity where they can go out and run some plays versus barrels and that type of thing. But, they start camp in August, and if they haven't had that first session of practices along with all of the learning time leading up to those first practices, it's hard to learn the playbook, and again, this is from, and I had to teach it to kids. I had to learn it myself. The more time and reps that you can have to wear it out, and the more you can be around your coaches before you get to the field in August, the better you're going to be. But these coaches are busy. I mean, June, July, August, man, they're, June is camp season. I mean, we're going to be in June in a week. And then in July, it's, the coaches are on vacation. It's their last, 2 or 3 weeks away from the Woody before everything starts. So everyone takes their family out and they get out of Dodge for a little bit. So the kids are kind of on their own. If you're a kid that shows up in June at Ohio State, man, it's like the coaches are all out at the recruiting camps. And then, they're trying to get a little bit of time away. And then July, they have their vacations. They get like 2-3 weeks where they're completely off, and they got a couple days of office hours. But the kids don't really have as much interaction. Then August comes and you're you're right into practice. So it's tough because you have to learn it. Now, again, it's always funny when I talk about this, because when I played back in the Stone Age in 2003, my first day at Ohio State was August 5th. I'll never forget it. And my mom drives me down there and drops me off. We had to be down there by 10 a.m. or whatever. And my mom drives me down from Canton. She drops me off, and I take my little bag and I could my roller bag and my duffel bag and check into the hotel. And that was the first time I met all of the upperclassmen. Obviously I knew the coaches, but it was it's like almost surreal that was my first day. I didn't have summer conditioning. That wasn't something that you did back then. You didn't get the option to graduate in June and come down here. You had your summer. And back in those days, we used to play in the North-South All-Star game in the Big 33 game, which the Big 33 used to be a great game between Ohio and Pennsylvania. And the old way of business was you would just graduate high school and then you'd go play in a couple All-Star games. You play for a week down here in Columbus at Otterbein for the Ohio North-South game, and then you go play for a week in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And that was great because that was kind of like a training camp type deal and super physical practices, and it was really fun. But those days are they've all been kind of waylaid by the ability for these kids to enroll in June now. So a little bit different. Got another super chat from Beth and Karis. I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys for being on here, and thanks for all you guys being on here on your Saturday night. All right, Beth and Karis. And if you guys are Scoop Ultra members, type 3 asterisks in front as Beth and Karis did, and it'll denote that it is a Scoop Ultra question, and I will answer it for you. So this is a Scoop Ultra episode. So thank you. James Peoples reminds me of a young Walter Payton. That's a little gaudy. I love you guys so much. The way he keeps driving and moving the pile. I mean, don't swing too high for the fences. I mean, good gosh. I mean, one of the top 5 running backs of all time. But I mean, I can see it. I mean, he's a special player, man. And I think that the way we run this offense and the amount of skill that we have on the edge, I'm talking about JJ and Carnell, he's going to get light boxes. They can't load the box versus JJ. They got to put 2 guys on JJ or JJ's going to eat him like a great white shark. You know, it's a cow in the middle of the ocean. So I think that you need, I mean, I like the comparison. And like I said, I'm very, very biased towards him because I think he's such a great kid. Love him to death, but he's a really, really, talented kid. And I think in this offense, he's going to be terrifying to go against. Oh, sorry, Steely, you put that, put the triple asterisks in the front and I will find you guys. So again, I'm trying to, it's the only way I can really do it. So S Steely did it. Put the 3 asterisks in the front. But again, I appreciate you guys being on here. This is always kind of an interesting weekend for me just because, you know, a lot of you guys, all of you guys, I think for the most part were, you know, alive and remember, unless you're really young. You know, Jim Trestle, this is the weekend Jim Trestle got fired. Memorial Day weekend, 2011 was a day I will never forget because I was out with some friends and we went and saw The Hangover 2, which was in theaters at that time. And I was really excited to see it because Hangover 1 is one of the funniest movies ever. Loved it. So, you know, when Hangover 2 came out, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be great and amazing. And I remember in the weeks leading up to that, there was a lot of rumors about the Sports Illustrated article that George Dorman wrote. And I had people calling me and texting me, and people in media were, hey, this is what's coming. Hey, this is what I've heard. Hey, this is what this guy said. And this is what the crux of the article is. And, you know, I would always kind of give Tress kind of the info that I had and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm hearing. Now, again, I don't know if it's accurate, but again, you can take the whole blob of information and kind of, you know, okay, it could be this bad or it could be this moderate or light or somewhere in between, whatever. So I remember, like, it's, you know, it's Sunday and I'm sitting in the movies and I'm watching it, love it. You know, again, I love going to the movies. I haven't been to the movies in a long time, but I used to love going to the movies. And I get a text from Mike Brewster. And like, I love Mike Brewster. He was like my little brother. He got there. His freshman year was my first year in the NFL, 2008. But I still love him to death. He's doing a great job. He's the assistant offensive line coach at Washington now, doing a great job. But Brew texts me and he says, why do we have a team meeting at 7 a.m. tomorrow? Which was, you know, this is this Sunday night. So Memorial Day, I'm like, we have a 7 a.m. meeting, or it might have been 8 a.m. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound good. So like I walk out of the theater and I called Jim Bowman, who's our offensive coordinator. And I was working for the team at the time as a grad assistant. And I was like, hey, Brewster just texted me and said that we've got a meeting at 8 a.m. with the team. Like, what's that about? And Jim Bowman had no idea what it was. He's like, I don't know. I had no idea. No one said anything to me. So somebody was telling Mike Brewster, and obviously, you know, I figured out who it was, that we had a team meeting, but our offensive coordinator had no idea. So I'm like immediately in a panic because I think I know what this means. So all of a sudden it's like we're I'm in the movie, but I'm not really in the movie. And I'm standing out in the hallway and I'm calling players and asking if they've been, Jack Mewhort, some of these kids, have they been texted? And most of them had. And then Jim Baldwin calls me back and says, we have a staff meeting at 7 a.m. So I was like, well, this ain't good. A random 7 a.m. staff meeting. So we, like, I can't sleep. Like this is like one of the, cause if you have a brain, you kind of know what's coming. And I didn't know at the time but like Jim Trestle was in Breckenridge, and they made him like fly back overnight on private jet. Like, I mean, they made him fly home from his vacation. He was with a good friend of mine and the families and everything. And so they were Breckenridge, for the weekend, and he had to fly back the middle of like Saturday night and do the whole stupid thing. And so, and they met with him on Sunday, I guess, while all this was going on. And then, we get in there on Monday, and it was just like, I couldn't sleep. So I go to the Woody Hayes like 3 a.m. and I'm there, can't sleep, take some pre-workout. I'm in the gym, getting a good lift in, working out. And, it worked out for like 2.5 hours, but I really can't focus. It's just like one of those cruddy workouts. And it's just I kept looking upstairs and looking out the parking lot to see where if Trestle showed up yet, and like his car wasn't in the lot yet. And I kept looking online to see if it broke it or if there's any news or if it was anywhere, and it didn't leak, which was a miracle of God, that it hadn't leaked. But like his car never showed up, and then so finally. Like, I remember I'm walking up and down the hallways in the Woody Hayes. And again, this is why, like, I hate going to the Woody Hayes, because, like, I think about stuff like this and it's just terrible. But, and I remember, like, his office door was closed, but it was always closed when he wasn't there. But all of a sudden, there were a couple guys coming out. There were, a couple of, guys dressed, pretty distinguished, which I assume were people on the board of trustees or someone of that kind of ilk. And then there were a bunch of state troopers, a bunch of cops, fully, pointy hat and the whole 9 yards. And there was like 4 of them. And I'm like, well, this isn't good. I was like, you've got cops here and stormtroopers walking up and down the thing. And that's when I figured out that he parked in the back of the Woody. He wasn't in the front. So he did park at his front spot that he always parked in. So it was weird. And by this time it's probably, 6:30-ish, and coaches are starting to filter in a little bit. And 7 a.m. we meet with Gene Smith. And, he says that he's got, that Jim Trestle has decided to resign from being the head coach at Ohio State. I'm just like, okay, sure. Trestle was fighting for his day in court and fighting for his life and wanted his day in court, suddenly just rolls over and resigns. And again, it was a devastating day for me just because of what he means to me to this day and what he meant to those kids. And Gene said that he's going to promote Luke to being the acting head coach, the interim head coach. And, I mean, you get the whole coaching staff here that, when the head coach gets fired, like Jim Trestle gets fired, those coaches all know that they're all likely to get fired. Again, when there's a new coach that's promoted, and the old guy, like when a head coach gets fired, the whole staff in general gets fired. There might be 1 or 2 guys that get held over. But yeah, it was a strange time, man. And I mean, Luke, took the job, and obviously it wasn't fair to him to get it, but he got it. And then we went into the team room, and that was the first time I saw Tress. And mind you, like the kids have the weekend off. It's like right now our kids have the weekend off. So a lot of these kids got on the plane and they flew home to Miami or wherever. And I'm sure they'll work out probably Tuesday or Monday night or whatever. But we told the kids we were going to have like a 4 o'clock workout on Monday. So if kids wanted to go home to Florida, they could fly home fly back from Florida at 8 a.m. and get up to Ohio in time for the workout. Because, you always want to have, when you have an extended break, like a Christmas break, you always want to have something that night before that makes them come back just in case their flight gets canceled or delayed. Because if they miss the workout, they're going to pay a penalty, but it's not the same as the next day when we actually have to really get going with workouts or practice, whatever. So we always did that. That was a big Trestle thing. But, with the kids not being home till 4, or back till 4, a lot of them weren't there at 8 a.m. because, they're in Youngstown or Cleveland or Canton or whatever. So they didn't make it to the 8 a.m. meeting. So like when Jim Trestle resigned in front of the team, there might have been 8 kids in the building. Because I remember Brewster was there, Mewhort was there, Etienne Sabino was there. But it was a skeleton crew of skeleton crews, you know. It was brutal. And they Trust stood up in front of him and told the team that he was no longer the head coach. And I mean, the kids are just bawling their eyes out, and it was brutal. And then I watched that, and I was, you know, I was saying, I really don't, I don't swear on the show, but you guys, you can imagine the swear words that I thought of our administration for rolling over and being a bunch of cowards at that point, because that's what they were. They were cowards, and it changed my perspective on a lot of them. But with Tress, you know, he went out, got in his car. I went out, jumped in my truck, followed him back to his house, and it was amazing. None of the media picked up on it. There was no, because I thought for sure there'd be, you know, 10 TV or ABC6 or one of those vultures chasing him home or somebody. And I was like, well, I'll follow him home, make sure he gets into his house okay and can lock the door. And, you know, because once this thing hits, it's all hell's going to break loose. And when it hit, it was like breaking news, Sports Center, 10 a.m. Like Jim Trestle has resigned as head coach at Ohio State. And it was crazy. You know, and again, Memorial Day is Memorial Day. It is for recognizing our fallen heroes. It always will be that. It always is that. You know, and really that was kind of, you know, a slap in the face that they did it to him on Memorial Day too, as much as he did for the military and tried to help them and really embrace the armed services. And we'd always have guys out at practice, and the late great Bob Tucker actually had a position in our program where he was kind of like the not the dignitary, but he was the guy that the military would go through when they would want to come to practice, or, you know, when the ROTC would want to come over and watch practice, or when guys that were home from a tour, they want to come watch practice. So trusted so much of the military. So I didn't like that either, but Memorial Day is always for our fallen soldiers. But yeah, I just, I thought I'd tell you guys a little bit about that story of when Trust got fired, because that was a bad day, man. It's tough, but hey, you guys are on here. You guys wanted to hear a little bit of story time, but it was, yeah. And then I had to clean his office out after that, which was incredible. Like cleaning his office out. Me and Johnny Simon were packing all the boxes up for the poor guy and driving him over to his house. And it was, yeah, that was an experience. Moving one of your heroes out of his office isn't something I recommend or would want to do. Sean Schrock, what is up, brother? I hope you are doing great. Appreciate you, my man. All right. Thanks for being an ultra member. Thanks for being a great moderator, a great friend, along with you, Steely, Beth Karras, like all you guys that are on every day, Devin, Mello, like the whole crew. I appreciate all you guys that are on here every day. Sean Truck, hey Kirk, who do you think the starting five is on the offensive line? This is going to be the starting five on the offensive line. And again, when I say stuff, again, I try to deal in absolutes and do that type of stuff for you guys, but unless there's an injury, the starting five on the offensive line will be Ethan Oniano at left tackle, Luke Montgomery at left guard, Carson Hinsman at center, Tigger Tishkabola at right guard, Austin Seyerveld at right tackle. That's the lineup that they're settling on. I think it makes the most sense, man, because when you open with Texas, man, you can't be breaking in someone that you haven't won. And I think that it's a great way to reward the four guys that started in the playoffs and carried you to a title. And, you know, we had that guard rotation that was funky, and Justin Fry and Ryan Day were geniuses. Again, sometimes I think that rotation stuff, it's great because it keeps kids engaged. But I think if a kid might be in a funk or might have his foot out the door from the portal into the portal, it kind of reinvigorates them and reengages them. And again, I'm not saying I don't have any intel on Luke Montgomery, but, you know, he didn't play all year, and he's almost a 5-star kid, and, you know, the jury was kind of out on him. And again, I give Justin Fry, people don't give Justin Fry enough credit, in my opinion. The fact that you look at these guys and what they did in the playoffs, and they decided to rotate guards, starting with Tennessee, and Tennessee had, you know, a fantastic defensive line, and said, well, we're going to play Luke. And then Luke stepped in and was balling out. It goes to show value to practice and to scrimmaging and getting better and having that mindset that even if you're not a starter, you have to work like a starter. And I always tell that to our backups, like our guys that are the second huddle, the second team offensive line, second team D line, like especially on the O line, when in general only the 5 starters play and you don't rotate. But, you know, it only takes a guy breaking a shoelace and you're in the game, or worse, you know, spraining an ankle, getting his knee blown out like Josh Simmons or Seth McLaughlin with his Achilles. So you gotta work like you're a starter. You gotta act like you're a starter. Don't act like you're, a scrub or a bum because you're backup, because you gotta get ready to go. And again, there's no guarantee that the five guys in are gonna are gonna perform great. So if they're gonna give them the hook, you gotta get ready to go. Again, like I've said a million times, like my first game ever that I played extended time more than 10 or 15 plays. I was playing about 10 or 15 plays a game for the first 3 or 4 games of my redshirt freshman year in '04. But we play Wisconsin. And again, you guys can look at this game on YouTube. The 2004 Wisconsin Ohio State game. And their defensive end, Erasmus James, was the best player in the country at that point. Through 5 games, he was knocked out 2 Penn State quarterbacks. The week before we played him, he knocked out both Penn State quarterbacks. And you can Google that. And I'm not talking about they weren't playing good. I mean, he put one on a stretcher. He put Zach Mills on a stretcher. And Michael Robinson had to leave the game with injury. So 2 guys were out of the game. But so again, that's like the nightmare of the offensive tackles. Like if you play against an end who's so good that if you miss the block, that it's going to be like the Joe Theismann thing where the guy's leg gets broken or guy gets concussed. And he got in that game, man, and in the first 10 plays, man, he had like 2 sacks, a tackle for a loss, and Tim Schaefer, who was starting in front of me, couldn't touch him. Was getting absolutely dominated. So they put me in, and like it wasn't pretty when I got in there, but I was able to at least stay in front of him and fight him a little bit and battle him a little bit. And it was, it was a time where I hadn't played more than 10 plays. So I had to make sure I had my mind right, make sure it's a long game, and do the best I can. And he was incredible. Best guy I ever went against. But I was able to keep him sack free, and I'll give some pressures, but he's the best guy in the country. And I wasn't getting a lot of help. So I wasn't getting a chip or a tight end to help very much. So it was tough. So, I mean, I just tell these guys to stay ready and keep rolling. Pooh Beard, what is up, brother? Hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. Appreciate you, my dude. Thanks for being a great member of this show, and also BuckeyeScoop.com. Again, our message board is on fire today. Really excited about it. Pooh Beard, thanks as always. He says, can we talk about how good of a get Will Howard was? Yes. I mean, there are some people that they're not on the Will Howard train yet. I don't know what's going to take, but not only do you get a natty, but Julian gets to witness an A++ leadership from the front row. I mean, that's part of the thing that's made Mark Pantoni excellent and Ryan Day in terms of bringing this. And this is a Ryan Day joint. Like, again, as much as I'd love to give Mark Pantoni credit for Will Howard, that was 1,000,000,000% on Ryan Day, because Ryan Day is a quarterback guy. That's his position. And that's the thing. That's why I sleep like a baby. And I was thinking about Julian Sayin as our quarterback, because Ryan Day is not going to sit around and wait for the quarterback to develop. He's going to put the hammer down, and he's going to develop them. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable, but our quarterback's going to be good, and he's going to get developed, and it's going to be hellacious. So, you go out and think about this. Like, what kind of balls do you have to take Will Howard from Kansas State, career 50% passer or whatever, his stats weren't great, and you jettison Kyle McCord, who, the team liked Kyle. I mean, Kyle's a well-liked quarterback. And, they wanted some demands. His dad's an idiot. And so they wanted some demands to go, and you're guaranteed starter, no competition. And Ryan didn't go for it. And Ryan told him to go fly a kite, go pound salt, or go pound sand. And they did. They hit the portal before the bowl game and left and quit on the team. And they went to Syracuse, and that's great. And, but they went out and got Will Howard. And again, for what this offense needed in terms of leadership, true leadership, athleticism, and toughness, Will Howard just absolutely blows Kyle McCord away in all those different categories. So Ryan had to make the decision, and he did it. And God, it did pay off in a huge way. And that's why, like, when people worry about Julian Sayin and they worry about, that, I'm like, guys, with our quarterback coach, Ryan Day, who's our head coach, he's the overseer of that room. There's no way that Julian's not going to develop into an all Big Ten level quarterback, in my opinion. And we might have him for 3 years, which should be terrifying. Again, because you think about this offense in 25, I think it's going to be the best offense in the country. But in 26, we're going to have JJ back. We're going to have Brandon Ennis back. I would bet we're going to have Max Clare back. We're going to have James Peoples back. And we're going to have Julian Sayin back. And then on the offensive line, we have everybody back except for Ethan Onyanwa. So, I mean, that's going to be pretty incredible. So, but I love what Will did. And I think that that's a huge benefit to NIL is that not only can you grow your culture, but you can enhance your culture because you'll have, you bring in Caleb Downs, who's one probably, in my opinion, and Nevada laughed at me last year when I said he's the best safety in Ohio State history, but he is. He's going to be the best safety in Ohio State history. And he's one of the most impactful players in history in terms of his prep, how he works, how he acts, how he moves. He's exactly how you want every young player to act and see. And he was only a sophomore last year. He wasn't a fifth year senior. He was a sophomore. So as he's grown into a leader, wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a captain this year with Sonny. I mean, he probably should be. He should be. You know, and again, it's nothing against our other seniors, but he's a true leader out there on the field. Maybe you go 6 captains this year and you go maybe a guy up front, maybe Kenyatta or Caden Curry, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs. And then on the other side of the ball, you could go, it's going to be tough on the other side of the ball. I mean, we're so young. Who's our best senior on offense? We don't really have one. Ethan Oniana was one, but he just got here in January. So I don't know if you make him a captain, but do you make Austin Seyerveld a captain? I mean, quarterback's not going to be a senior. The running backs aren't going to be seniors. None of the receivers are. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see who the offensive captains are at this point. Now that I think about it, because you get Carson Hinsman could get a vote, Austin Seyerveld could get a vote. I mean, JJ's only a true sophomore, which would be exceptionally rare. You could maybe make Carnell a captain. Carnell's not super vocal. Neither is JJ. Ennis is supremely vocal. Ennis is crazy when he's like the poltergeist when he's on the field. So he'd be a great captain, but he doesn't really have the production to back it up thus far. So I think it'll be fascinating. It'll be good. Any other Scoop Ultras? If you guys have any, go ahead and toss those in there. But yeah, I just wanted to knock out a quick show as we get into these NBA games. And thank you guys, and especially thank all of our military and all of our folks that serve this country. Any of you that have lost a loved one that was a military member, again, thank you to you. I mean, obviously the sacrifice is huge. It's incredible. I've had a ton of members of my family that served all over the world in the world wars in Korea. And again, I just very proud of our military, very proud of this country. And I try to express that as much as I can with this platform that you guys have all given to me, that we've all grown together. So I think that I've got everybody, and I appreciate you guys so much. I got all of our super chats. So with that being said, as these games are about to tip off, I am going to wrap this thing up. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys so much for all that you guys do in growing this thing. It's been an incredible run, and I hope that you guys have a great rest of your weekend and celebrate Memorial Day by paying homage to the people that lost their lives for this great country. So as always, if you guys want to help us out in a huge way, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts. That is an easy thing to do. Super simple. Get out your iPhone, type podcast, type in Buckeye Scoop, and leave us a 5-star review. As always, I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. And thank you to all who serve in our military. Thank you to all our first responders, our police officers that are keeping us safe this weekend. You guys be careful out there. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. I will talk to you guys tomorrow night. You guys have a great night. Go Bucks.